Talking about last night's game.
Big facts. Let's go.
Season opener, NFL kickoff, Bills at Rams. We know the Bills embarrassed the Rams 31-10. Now, what was your biggest takeaway from this game? I'll start with you, Riv.
I think the defense. I think the defensive line for the Buffalo Bills was amazing. You know, I think they set the tone. Well, I think offensively, of course, the Bills are always going to set the tone because they're a great offensive team. But I think defensively, the front seven put a lot of pressure up on that offensive line for the Rams was not that good. We've shown that they struggled a lot all game. And that front seven was great. And then you look at the back end, the secondary, you know, aside from a couple times where they let Coop get open, and Cup, and he's just going to do what he's going to do. The secondary was pretty great last game. I mean, they were without White, who's I wouldn't say he's one of the best, but he's an elite. He's an elite.
He is
corner.
one of the best,
and he didn't play. And the young guys was out there. Ben Ford, 6th round pick. You know, he did the best he can do. I think defensively, you look at the Bills. They looked just off a 1-game reaction. They looked very complete. And I think offensively, aside from the interception, which one of them wasn't Allen's fault, so I'm not going to take blame for it because it bounced right off McKenzie. You know, it happens. But I think offensively, they just looked amazing. Gabe Davis looked great. Stephon Diggs looked like he looked a little different. You know, he took the one-on-one matchup personally against Ramsey, and he beat him a lot of times. So, off reaction, I mean, I thought the Bills were going to win. They're my pick to win the Super Bowl, so this game just makes me more confident in this team because the Rams are no joke. That was in L.A., and that's a tough game to play in itself.
So couple reactions here because on the show I said that I thought the Bills were going to win. Then on Twitter I go and
pulled the Joel.
This guy, man.
You pulled the him.
This guy loves to interrupt me when I speak. Anyways,
get a grip.
On Twitter, I did decide to change my pick, and my reasoning was solely, hey,
Stafford,
got to stay loyal to the guys that brought me to the promised land last season. So I figure at home maybe they'd pull out the W. But I was wrong. I definitely was. And a big takeaway from me was the Rams' offensive line. For them to give up 7 sacks, 15 quarterback hits.
Von Miller.
Stafford's not that type of quarterback that's going to be scrambling around the pocket, making all these extravagant plays. That's not him. He needs time in the pocket to sit, make his reads, and deliver a strike. He had some really good balls yesterday. He had some poor ones, no doubt. Definitely a couple interceptions. I look at Matthew Stafford and think that's on him, specifically the one to Tyler Higbee. That ball was
too high?
No,
the one that
Tyler Higbee's running an out route. He basically
wait,
just goes
all of them weren't his fault?
The tip in the air.
I think the tip was too high. It was too high. It was over.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. The Coop interception was definitely on him.
The other one to Jane Jackson on the right side of the field was his fault, too.
No, that's the one I'm saying.
So
yes.
He threw 3.
He threw 3.
So 2 of them were his fault.
I said 2 out of the 3.
Yeah.
But the other one, he threw it to
just like it was the defensive lineman. The defensive lineman made a really good play on it. Like, I guess you could
2
say
were
it's on
definitely his
him. 2
fault.
were 100% on him.
That was the end of the game, too.
Exactly. Yeah, no. Yeah, it was.
He could have had 4. He could have ended with 4.
Could he have?
Because a defensive line tipped it again, and they scrambled to the ball.
They could have had a few, if we're being honest. Well, last game, they could have had a few of those.
And another takeaway for me is the Bills are who everyone thought they would be. The Bills came out and gut punched the Rams. And even still, the Rams kind of held their own in the first half. But second half, the Bills just came out and said, we know who we are. We're going to come out here. We're going to execute a perfect game plan. And that's exactly what they did, both offensively and defensively. Josh Allen looked borderline perfect yesterday. Couple miscues, but I'm not blaming the first interception on him. One, the defender made a really good play. The second interception, I'm going to put that one on Josh Allen. He kind of just threw the ball right on his body, and the defender just made a good cut on it. But other than that, Josh looked dominant passing the ball. He threw dart after dart. He was rushing the football effectively. My main takeaway from this is that the Bills are who we thought they were.
I agree. I don't want to talk too much about the Bills because they just dominated. They make offense look incredibly easy. The first drive they came out on the field, and it was like
Bills Mafia, boy.
It was almost like they were playing a different sport than the Rams at times. I know it was 10-10 going into halftime, but really, there wasn't a doubt in my mind. Once it kicked off and the Bills went down the field, I was like, I might be fucked. Like, this might be over.
Off drive 1, it was ugly.
The Bills looked fantastic. Ken Dorsey called a great game, his first game as offensive coordinator after Dable left. Josh Allen completed 80% of his passes. A lot of it was short, but he had the big play to Gabe Davis, had the big play to Stephon Diggs. So when the opportunity arose, he was able to make that happen. We know he could do it. Receivers were great. The running backs really stood out. I thought Devin Singletary
was really good.
Looked fantastic. It was, honestly, I thought the best I've seen him run ever since he's come into the league. He seemed like every carry, he was breaking tackles. He looked explosive. The Bills are great. We know they're going to be great. And the Von Miller addition just really solidifies this team and their pass rush because They didn't blitz. They really didn't blitz at all, and they were getting pressure every single play.
They didn't blitz once.
They didn't at all.
Drew and I were talking on the way here to the show. They could lead the league in sacks. Like, this defensive line and the assortment of pass rushers coming in and out of the game, they're always going to be fresh.
Ed Oliver was in and out of the lineup.
And he didn't get missed.
No.
He wasn't missed.
No.
So from the Bills, you said it perfectly, Drew. They're just confirming what we thought they were. The Rams, on the other hand, the panic meter, it's one game. It moves up a little bit. It was at a 1. It's at a 3.5 right now.
I'm not going to lie.
They have Atlanta next week. It's a get-right game for them. They're going to go to Atlanta, and they're going to whoop their ass. There's not a doubt in my mind. But against the Bills, the Rams have Super Bowl aspirations. They want to make a deep run in the NFC. When you're going up against these elite teams and you look inferior, and a lot of the times they look like they didn't belong on that field, it's concerning, and it starts with the offensive line. We know Whitworth retiring, Austin Corbett leaving, that the offensive line was going to be a problem, but not this bad. They allowed pressure on 48% of passing plays. It's the 7th highest single-game mark for the Rams since 2016. This is not something we've even seen in the Sean McVay era, how bad this offensive line has been. And I think part of that is they can't run the ball. Cam Akers did nothing. 3 carries, 0 yards. Darrell Henderson, he had a nice 18-yard run. Outside of that, he had 12 carries for like 20 yards. He couldn't get anything going. We know the Rams, Sean McVay, everything goes off based on the zone running scheme. If they're not able to run the ball, it might be a bit of a difficult season for them. Stafford didn't look great. He targeted Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee on 63% of snap on targets. Allen Robinson wasn't involved. He was getting open. There was multiple times Allen Robinson was open. He didn't have enough time to throw the ball. So it's hard for me to say really what this Rams offense is going to look like, because they're going up against possibly the best pass rush in the NFL. So let's give them another week. Let's see what they look like against not arguably the best team in the NFL. They'll be fine. Sean McVay's never won less than 9 games. They'll make the playoffs. I'm not overreacting completely. But in terms of the elite teams in the league, the Rams took a step down for me.
That fast? I think like a game, like when you said we shouldn't judge them too harshly against the elite teams, I think when you have Super Bowl aspirations, you have to. Like, I think games against Atlanta, games against the Cardinals, like we have to judge you by the games you play with your competition. If we put you, obviously before the game, we had the Rams at the top of the helm in that tier with the Bucks, with the Chargers on the other side, with the Bills, the Chiefs, all that. Like, one of the top teams in the league. We have to judge you on those games. And
that's why I'm saying regular season, I think they'll be fine. But in terms of the elite teams, like, yes, it's going to stick in my brain that they got smoked at home.
We are going to be giving away NBA 2K23 Legendary Editions to a couple of you guys, and all you have to do is sign up for Boom Fantasy, deposit $10, which is you're putting in $10 to get a $150 game. On top of that, you play Boom, you can double your money with your deposit. So you can make money
40 times with long shots.
Yeah. So if you want to join in the giveaway, then sign up for Boom. The link is in our bio.
But ensure that you guys make that $10 deposit. That's the only way that you gain entrance into this raffle.
And based on who wins, you guys tell us what version you want, the Legendary one, Dreamers Edition, which console, or you want it for PC. You know, it's up to you. But I think that's a great deal.
Maybe we'll go on live on TikTok for the first time.
And NBA 2K23, I heard it's great. I heard it's looking great.
Riv, confirm, deny?
Fire.
That's tough.
Just make sure you use our link, because if you don't use our link, we don't know that's where you're coming from. We don't know you're coming from. Pick a side.
Link in the description.
Link description or the bio.
Description.
Number 1. Gabriel Davis for me was the takeaway on the Bills. Jesus Christ. Now listen, you guys talked about the Bills. I mean, listen, the Bills are who they are. They're a Super Bowl contender. There's a reason why they're my Super Bowl favorite. So I don't want to talk about the Bills. We know who they are, and I think the world found out who Gabriel Davis is, number 13 on the Buffalo Bills. My biggest takeaway from the game is that the Rams are in trouble. They're in trouble. And could you have made the same point about the Green Bay Packers last year when they lost to the Saints? Yes, but I think there are more holes on the Rams roster that Green Bay didn't have last year. The Rams lost Andrew Whitworth, arguably the best pass-blocking left tackle in the league outside of Trent Williams. They replaced him with Joe Noteboom, who's average at best. They lost Austin Corbett, who's been a pillar on their offensive line for years. Those are 2 big-time losses. The Rams' offensive line is horrible. Is the Bills' defensive line great? Yes. Are they going to be one of the best ones in the league? Yes. The Rams are going to struggle like this against a bunch of different teams. The Vikings defensive line will give them fits. The Packers defensive line will give them fits. The 49ers defensive line will give them fits. The Saints defensive line will give them fits. The Eagles defensive line will give them fits. This offensive line is putrid. It's bad. It's going to be one of the worst groups in football. This is why the Rams are in trouble. They forced 4 turnovers last night.
I'm sorry. I just saw the thing you said on Twitter.
I'm not even gonna look.
They forced 4 turnovers last night, and they could not score on none of them. They didn't score.
I don't even want to look.
My
bro.
God.
I'm trying to be serious. Why'd you have to open up your phone?
I'm sorry,
Why'd you
bro.
have to
Like,
open up
we're
your
in the middle of a segment. Bro's over here.
I don't want to
So
look.
they forced 4 turnovers, and they did not capitalize on either of them. Drew mentioned, the Rams were fighting in the game in the first half. The Rams stunk in the first half.
And it was a tie game.
Had it not been for the Bills shooting themselves in the foot,
wrong
it would
with
have been a blowout in the first half. This should have been a 30-point blowout, not a 21-point blowout. It should have been a 30-point blowout.
Shit, 40.
Why are you thinking of it
Matthew
like
Stafford was hit on 36% of his dropbacks. The offensive line got no push in the run game. The running backs in total averaged 2.9 yards per carry. They didn't get any depth on play-action passes. The last time Matthew Stafford was sacked 6 times was 2019 versus the Bears when he was in Detroit.
2018, I thought.
2018 versus the Bears, Week 10. This offensive line is going to be bad. Stafford 3 interceptions. I thought all of them were his fault.
Even
You said the defensive lineman made a great play, but yeah, that's because Stafford didn't fit it in the right window to get it over the defensive lineman.
Stop it.
Like, I think an interception that's not a quarterback's fault is one that the receiver drops or it bobbles off.
Yeah.
But if you're throwing it to a defensive lineman and he gets it, that's your fault. And their 2 biggest additions, Allen Robinson was a no-show.
Sheesh.
I'm assuming he's going to be more so of the Allen Robinson on the 2021 Bears than he's been in previous seasons.
In 2020?
I'm annoyed
2020.
because
I think 2020.
I'm annoyed because I drafted him on one of my fantasy teams. The only team I drafted.
Oh,
him
no.
on.
He's talking about the 2021 Allen Robinson.
You're talking about like
that was
last
mid.
year.
Yeah.
That was mid.
Yeah, facts.
I think he won for. I don't think Allen Robinson is going to be this great receiver we're all thinking he's going to be. You know how I feel about Bobby Wagner. The Rams let up so many checkdowns because they play too high and they don't play aggressively because they don't have the secondary or the players to play that way. So they let teams dink and dunk them down the field, which I don't think is a recipe to have a great defense. I think their defense is going to regress. And Matthew Stafford, he's dealing with an elbow injury.
Not a mention of Jalen Ramsey, though.
You could tell.
Jalen Ramsey, I know he was bad.
fine.
Gave up a perfect passer rating.
But we know Jalen Ramsey's going to be fine.
Are
You're worried about Jalen Ramsey?
You're more worried about Jalen Ramsey than Bobby Wagner.
In the last 4 games, he's given up a deep touchdown. Prior to that, he hadn't given up one.
Let me ask you, though. Are you more worried about Jalen Ramsey than Bobby Wagner?
I mean, I have to say I'm more worried about Bobby, but I'm not worried about either. But I'm just saying not a mention of Jalen when he was abysmal yesterday.
There's a difference for me. Like, for example, the touchdown that Stephon Diggs had, that was supposed to be 4 quarters coverage, which means that Jalen Ramsey was probably assuming
I know what you're saying.
a safety was going to have his help right there. So that's why, for me, I don't really blame that on Jalen. Like, yeah, when you watch the play, you see Stephon run past him, and you're like, oh, he gave that
The
up.
safety was kind of sitting a
And
little
Diggs-
on the...
Yeah, but in quarters
was
coverage,
beating him all night.
the safety's supposed
Diggs
to be there.
was cooking
The
him.
route that he beat him on was the back shoulder route.
Correct. But that was
No
a
doubt.
perfect ball, too.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it was. There's no doubt.
Perfect.
Jalen Ramsey, I think because of the Rams' lack of corners and safeties, they don't have a good secondary. They don't have good depth. He's a man-to-man corner. He is now playing zone the majority of the time because the Rams can't play man because the corners suck. That's really the truth of it. And that's why, to me, I don't really look at Jalen Ramsey like, wow, he's the problem. I feel like he's a great player in a situation that can't play to his strengths because the defense can't be called in a certain way because there's players all around him that will get exploited in that way. I'm worried about Matthew Stafford. Now, what we saw, like, I think in the Stafford era, this is definitely the worst performance the Rams have had. There's a reason why last year I was worried about the Rams in the playoffs. Yes, they ultimately won it all, but in the regular season, didn't they routinely get shown up like this on prime time.
There was multiple times where they just didn't show up. The Tennessee, right? 49ers once.
Is multiple times last year. But the difference is last year they won. This year, they're not going to repeat. They're going to disappoint this season. I have the 49ers winning the division. The Rams are going to disappoint. Offensive line is horrible. Their third receiver is, I can't even name his name. They have
Tutu
to hope.
Atwell.
They have to hope.
No, it's Bennett Skowronek.
Skowronek. You're right.
They have to hope Van Jefferson comes back.
He might be the number 2 the way.
Daryl Henderson and Cam Akers. I mean, you can't run the ball because your offensive line is bad. Stafford is dealing with the pitcher's elbow injury. The defense, there's no depth on it.
Stafford really looked injured to you?
You can't make a fair assessment of Stafford from last night.
Like, that's what I'm saying. I don't feel you on that.
He made a couple.
This is the thing. Did Stafford look injured to me? He didn't look injured, but he's been dealing with an injury, and he's going to get hit like this for the majority of the season because the offensive line is bad.